Good morning and welcome to the Thursday, December 23rd, 2021 edition of the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. Today, we have a busy day of news, and we will also talk with the Honorable Erieka Bennett, the president of the African Communications Agency and the convening founder and head of mission of the African Diaspora Forum. We also talk with journalist Barrington Salmon about the recent trip to the Sudan, is a conjunction with the NNPA, in conjunction with the NNPA and the ACA. But first, let's introduce the president and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, Dr. Benjamin F. Chavez Jr. Dr. Chavez, good morning.
Thank you, Stacey, and good morning to all of our guests. On behalf of Karen Carter Richards, the chair of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, we represent 230 African-American owned newspapers and media companies all over the United States. We're very pleased to be on this morning's segment, and we welcome the ambassador and Barrington and James. We're going to have a great program for the Black press of America.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we bring our special guest, the Honorable Erieka Bennett on, let's bring on our journalist to go over the news topics of the morning. Barrington Salmon joins us, as well as James Wright. Good morning, guys.
Good morning. How are
Good
you?
morning.
Good to see you. Our first news topic this morning, gentlemen, the federal government next month will start mailing at-home COVID test kits for free to any U.S. household that requests one, a senior administration official said yesterday, as the Omicron variant of the coronavirus contributes to a spike in the new cases. The White House is preparing to ship as many as 500 million kits, and it is setting up a website for people to submit their requests. The federal government also plans to set up new testing sites nationwide in addition to the 20,000 operation, with the first one in New York City this week. Barrington, James, this Omicron virus has really turned things upside down.
Yeah. What strikes me is that every time that we keep on hearing that we're almost at the end, then we end up hearing about some other Greek-named piece of the virus. It's interesting because I talk to folks who are like traditional spiritual priests and healers, and the messages that they've been getting is that this is a cleansing from the universe, that there are things that we need to be doing in terms of taking care of Earth, taking care of each other, that we're not doing. So this is like a wake-up call, much as the wildfires and the droughts and the hurricanes are as well. So
yeah, there's no question that the environment has been in trouble a long time. In fact, Dr. Chavez has fought alongside so many others on the environment for so many years, also declaring environmental racism a problem, and we've seen that through and through. James, our next news topic this morning is Mary McLeod Bethune. The civil rights activist and Bethune-Cookman University founder will soon make history again. She will be the first Black person to represent a state in the National Statuary Hall collection at the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. The renowned Educators Florida Commission statue will be placed permanently in the Capitol in February of 2022, replacing the statue of a Confederate general standing at 11 feet tall and weighing in at 6,000 pounds. The statue shows Bethune in a cap and gown to signify her dedication to education. It also features a stack of her own books piled next to her. A smaller bronze version will also be placed in Riverfront Park near Mary McLeod Bethune Boulevard. The statue was created by Nilda Comus, a decorated sculptor who splits her time between Fort Lauderdale and Italy. How about that, James? This is a monumental moment to have her statue over at the Capitol.
Yes, well, let me just say that I am a proud member of the church that she used to attend, Asbury United Methodist Church in Washington, D.C. While she was in Washington working with the Roosevelt administration, she attended my church quite religiously, if I can say it that way. She was active in my church, so I'm very familiar with Dr. Bethune. And this is a great honor because of her contributions to education, but also her contributions to political activism. And despite all that was going on at the time in terms of lynchings, widespread discrimination, oppression, she stood fast with America. As a matter of fact, Stacey, as you probably know, she was one of the strongest supporters of WAVES, which is the organization of women trying to help the war effort in World War II. And she tried strongly to get Black women into that, with one victory of a lady who became a DC attorney, Debbie Roundtree. So she has a rich legacy in Washington, D.C., even though she's representing Florida. And as one Asbury to another, I'm very happy for
her. Absolutely. And also in the news this morning, President Joe Biden announced Wednesday he is extending the pause on student loan payments until May 1st. The payments, which were set to restart on February 1st, have been paused since the beginning of the pandemic. The president pointed to the ongoing COVID-19 crisis in the country as the reason for the extension. He says, given these considerations, today my administration is extending the pause on federal student loan repayments for additional 90 days through May 1st, 2022, as we manage the ongoing pandemic and further strengthen our economic recovery. Meanwhile, the Department of Education will continue working with borrowers to ensure they have the support they need to transition smoothly back into repayment and advance economic stability for their own households and for the nation. Barrington, James, and Dr. Chavez, I see Dr. Chavez here too. This pausing the student loan is really important. There's a lot of people calling on him to just forgive it outright.
Yeah, he should. He promised that he would forgive $10,000, which really isn't much when you consider how much how much debt, the debt burden that students are in. I think they said it's like 1.5 trillion. And you know what really grinds my gears is that they just passed a $760+ billion bill measure for the Defense Department. But every time that they're supposed to do things to help benefit ordinary Americans, they ask the question, who's going to pay for it and where's the money going to come from? So, you know, to me, it's like, it's a big deal in a way, but not really a big deal, because if Biden was really serious and if this was anything other than a capitalist state, they would forgive the debt and free people.
Yeah, there's a lot of controversy over that, James. The student debt. You know, you've covered Howard University and other schools. What's your take on this student loan debt? What do you foresee happening as Congress continues to battle with trying to get some of this student loan debt forgiven?
I agree with Barrington. I think there should be a wholesale forgiving of this debt. And it's interesting because Washington, D.C. as a state has the highest level of student debt per capita than any state in the nation. And you can pretty well guess why, because we have a lot of private universities here, and many people from throughout the world come here and they borrow money in order to attend these schools. And sometimes they get the jobs that can help pay the student loans. Oftentimes they don't. This is a real debt. It's a ticking time bomb, Stacey, and the Biden administration needs to do something in order to alleviate that, or it will really hurt our economy, particularly in a few years.
Yeah, one of the things that the administration has said is that they didn't want to give a blanket forgiveness of student debt because there are many, they believe, who can't afford to pay it. They want to really help those who can't afford to pay it. Doesn't that seem to make a little sense?
Hey, talk is cheap, bruh. They just opening their mouth to tell you something to make you, to kind of placate you. You know, my debt, I got a $5,000 loan to finish school. It's been sold so many times, I don't even know who owns it. And now they're saying that I owe almost $50,000. So the system itself is flawed. The system is a problem. And James is so correct. It is a ticking time bomb. And if they don't do something, if they don't pretend that ordinary Americans are rich, these rich, wealthy donors, and help, it's gonna blow up the economy.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, Stacey, because it's the middle class that's really dealing with this student loan debt, not the rich people. You know, they can afford to pay it off or just pay off for school.
yeah, well, it seems like the middle class gets the burden of just about everything in this country, doesn't it?
Yep.
The Barrington Salmon joined, he represented the NNPA, I should say, with the African Communications Agency. The agency seeks to facilitate more Afrocentric and direct coverage and reporting on Africa. They returned this week from a 5-day trip to the Sudan and to talk about the many opportunities that the ACA and the NNPA have planned are the Barrington Salmon and the Honorable Erieka Bennett, the president of the African Communications Agency and the convening founder and head of mission of the African Diaspora Forum. Good morning, Ambassador, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Stacey. It is indeed an honor to be here and to share with your viewing audiences and your newspaper some exciting news. First of all,
go ahead, Ambassador. We are excited to hear the news.
the news is, first of all, I want to thank Dr. Chavez and Ms. Claudette Perry for having confidence in us. ACA is an organization, it's a company we've been around since 1997. And basically, we were the first ones to do a partnership with CNN doing ad sales for them. And we produce movies, we produce documentaries, we produce publications and books. And now our emphasis is to set up news bureaus around Africa in terms of being able to tell the real stories of what's happening in Africa. A lot of times what we see is what the mainstream media wants us to see, which is war, famines, AIDS, and the COVID virus. And there's so much more to Africa. And I think that Barrington, along with our ACA team, they went to Sudan and they got a chance to see exactly what's on ground and not exactly what the mainstream media wants you to see. So again, we want to just say thank you. Our plans, 2022 is going to be an incredible year. We have a MOU with NNPA, thanks to Ms. Perry and Dr. Chavez. And what we plan to do is we plan to bring in your reporters to the various countries, and so they can see firsthand what's going on. So that's one of the things that we want all of your reporters to certainly be in contact with Ms. Perry if they're interested in being a part of this particular initiative.
Yeah, and Ambassador, so the first nation was the Sudan. Why did you choose that as the first trip?
Well, we chose that because of all the main media, what they were really saying there. And I had some contacts on ground, and some of the diasporians, Sudanese diasporians, they said to me, that's not really all that's going on. You know, people are going to lives, and of course there are challenges. Every country has a challenge. And so Sudan was the first that we really wanted to see exactly what was going on ground.
Yeah, and Barrington, who's with us, Barrington gave us a great report yesterday. We're looking forward to more. Barrington,
Yes, sir.
Your impressions of the ambassador's ambitions to get more African American journalists to specifically NNPA journalists over to Africa.
I am ecstatic because as a longtime journalist, my mantra has always been that nobody else can tell our story better than we can. And the fact of the matter is that we have to continue to do everything that we can to unite all of the folks, the Africans in the diaspora. There's work to be done. There is a lot of challenges, but there's also lots of opportunities. And the first thing that I think that needs to happen, which Ambassador and ACA and NNPA is doing, is giving accurate information to viewers, readers, anybody else, so that they can understand for themselves. They can see for themselves. The best thing is being on the ground, but the next best thing is getting stories, narratives, videos, movies about what's going on the ground in various African countries. Africa is the continent of the future. It's the youngest continent in the world. It is close to the top, if not at the top, in digital and tech. And so everywhere that I've been in Africa, they're always saying that we're looking to African Americans to give us help, to give us guidance, and to help us all move forward.
Yeah, and I know James Wright has some questions about the project for the ambassador. Go ahead, James.
Yes, Madam Ambassador, what about the presence of the Chinese in Sudan? You probably heard that in Uganda, the Chinese government has basically confiscated their international airport because the Ugandans couldn't pay back a debt. Could you talk about the presence of the Chinese in Sudan?
Well, I think Barrington probably would be better to do that than I do. But one of the things that I want to talk before I answer your question, James, is I want to put on my diaspora hat. I am the ambassador for the Diaspora Africa Forum. We're the first and only diplomatic mission of its kind dealing with the diaspora. Our role is to support the Africa Union in bringing together the African diaspora. There's two types of African diasporas. There's our group taken from slavery, and we're considered the historical diaspora. Then there's the continental diaspora, which would be the Ghanaians, Nigerians, those who know what country they're from, but they migrate outside for work, study, or greener pastures. And one of the things that the heads of states now understand, the importance of including the diaspora. You know, James, your question about the Chinese, they're all over Africa now. And that has been a plan. I remember 30 years ago, one of my brothers did a lot of work in China. And he said they started that master plan in terms of how they were going to take over Africa 30 years ago. So our thing is, we as the African diaspora, we have to create our own strategy in terms of how we're going to unite back into Africa. You see, and again, we're not saying everybody come back, but we're saying everybody look back. There's something that every African can do to move forward and to help us here in Africa. You see, one of the things when we talk about Africa being poor, Africa is not poor. Let me just make sure people understand that. The quality of life I have in Africa, I've never had that in the United States. Let me make sure you understand that. You see, I sit here, I advise heads of states and ministers, and my quality of life, and particularly as a senior, I use my senior privileges all the time. And I don't stand in lines. I got 10 people taking care of me. You see, I'm 71. And at 71, when I can say that I love my life, it's a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Yeah.
So just very quickly, getting back to the ACA and the NNPA relationship. You see, one of the things, and Miss Perry, Claudette Perry, has been a longtime supporter of our organization, and she's on our board and all of that on the Diaspora Africa Forum. And when we talked about what ACA is doing, and we talked about what NNPA is doing, it was a natural synergy. It was just something that needed to happen. I must admit, for the past 15 years, my focus has been DAF. And now I am primarily looking at what we can do with the African Communications Agency. We have a distinguished board of some of the most powerful Africans in Africa, and they're on our board. So, and then the fact that when I put my Diaspora Africa Forum hat on, there's not a president in Africa who, if I call them now, they'll call us back. So that's the kind of synergy that we have, and we're really looking forward to it. You're iconic, Dr. Chavez, who has done so much for Black people all over the world. You see, we're really looking forward to him. He gets invitation every day. The Oni of Ife loves him. The various presidents love him. So all we have to do under Miss Perry's direction, let's just be clear,
Yep.
who really puts it together and who really makes it happen, under her direction, we can move mountains. So 2022, I really look forward to a fantastic and exciting initiative and venture together.
And along those lines, Ambassador and Barrington, you can chime in on this as well. I sat in on the process in which the reporters were chosen, the questions that were asked. What should reporters, let me put it this way, what should reporters in the NMPA family, and this extends to all 230 of the NMPA member newspapers, their journalists, what should they bring to the table? What would you like for them to bring to the table? What should they expect when they are going on one of these journeys to one of the African nations? Because you guys have plans to do several more.
Oh, we do. And I'll let Barrington talk about how that experience was for him. But basically, we do select, under Mrs. Perry's leadership, because we want people who really have an interest in Africa. That's number one. Who, even if you haven't been exposed to Africa, you have an interest and you know how to do the research on the various countries, and you have quite a bit of experience. That's one of the things, because this is not something that you're not trained to. We're not training you to do it, and that's why we selected Barrington, because Barrington had the experience, the enthusiasm, and he was ready to roll. One of the things that we found, there were some very good people, but they didn't have their passport, they didn't have, their birth certificates, they didn't have various documents. So the opportunity is you have to be ready. And as I said, we don't give you a lot of time, because when we're asked to do these things, they say, spur of the moment, we'd like you to come and do so and so and so. One of the things is that we pay for all of your expenses. We pay a per diem every day. We pay for your shots. Everything that you need to be ready. We handle those expenses. So Barrington, you may want to take a moment and tell him, how do we do with that?
I've been writing for 37 years, and I've always, in the back of my mind, said one of these days I wanted to be a part of a delegation where I was pampered and taken care of and all that stuff. And this is exactly what happened for the time that we were in Sudan. We were waited on hand and foot. Folks extended every courtesy and every shred of hospitality. I would like to just say that one of the things, a few of the things that I think is important for anybody who is any reporter, journalist who's hoping to do this, is that you have to have an open mind. You have to set aside the American mentality, and I'll explain it this way. I've been on trips with folks from the United States, and we went to China, and they were complaining that they couldn't get hamburgers. And so you gotta be prepared to immerse yourself in the culture, to try the food, to put aside, all of the things that you may think is a part of what makes your life. Got to be inquisitive, got to be curious, got to be willing. You got to be willing to take risks. We were there on the 19th of December, which is the 3rd anniversary of the December Revolution. And both Latif and I were like, yo, we need to go out. We need to go see what's going on. And the folks that were there with us from Sudan, no, it's not a good idea. And I was like, what's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? If you say that you're really a journalist, you can't be saying you're going to sit in your hotel room while things are going on. You want to go out there, you want to talk to people, you want to see for yourself. Like, for example, I said yesterday that in the hotel that I was at, there is a bridge right across from where we were, and for about 5 or 6 hours on Sunday, I watched skirmishes with protesters and the security forces. And the only problem would have been the tear gas, because they were lobbing tear gas because the protesters were putting barriers up in the street. But
that sounds like America, Barrington.
Well, yeah, true. yeah, that's true. And it's funny because people have this really skewed sense of what Africa is. Oh my God, you're going to go to Africa? Because people said to me, why are you going? Because Sudan is burning. America's burning. But it's not all of America. And Sudan is absolutely huge. So whatever's going on is happening in parts of the country, in parts of cities. So we need to have a different perspective. And as an African diasporan, it is incumbent on me to tell our story, because nobody else can. And it's interesting because when we spoke to government officials there, they were skeptical, because they said every time that we have folks come, BBC, Al Jazeera, and all these things, they make all these promises about what they're going to do and the stories they're going to write. And then they spend time with them. And then when they see the stories, they're like, well, where did they get this from? Mm-hmm. And the thing that struck me as well in talking to these officials is that because we are African, they felt a kinship, they expressed a kinship, and they said that kinship engenders trust, that we'll tell their stories and not continue the narratives of the United States and other foreign nations.
Well, one of the things Bobby Henry brings up, Bobby Henry, our publisher at the West Side Gazette in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, he says health and safety are concerns. Obviously, those are not issues. I see you live and in color and healthy. And talk about that briefly. We're running short on time, but I see the ambassador wants to speak on perhaps on that as well, about any health and safety concerns that a journalist may have.
Well, yes, I did. I just kind of wanted to buttress what Barrington was saying in terms of the reception. You see, ACA, we really have a very good reputation in Africa. And they know that we're not just publicists. We don't just tell the story because somebody wants us to tell the story. We tell it from a real standpoint, and from a standpoint of exactly people like Barrington going in and seeing what's on ground. So I really want to stress that. The other point I want to stress too, that Barrington and the other team members, we had team members from Ghana to go there as well, because we really feel, and this is the point I really want everybody to understand, it's just not what America thinks about Africa. It's what Africa thinks about Africa. A lot of people really don't understand. My staff, I asked them, do you know what goes on in Sudan? None of them, I have a staff of really dynamic young people. None of them know exactly what's going on in Sudan. They only know exactly what CNN and BBC has been telling them. So that's why I think that what NNPA and ACA is doing is just going to be phenomenal. We're going to tell our story. We're going to tell it in a truthful way. We're not being anybody's publicist. We're there to tell what really, really is on ground. So I just want to say that.
Yeah. And real quick, Barrington, like I said, we're running out of time. I just want you to address that bit that Bobby Henry brought to our attention, the health and safety.
Of reporters, you mean?
Yes, from the delegation that you went with.
We had a security detail. We were transported places. When we were offline, we just went around the city, different neighborhoods and stuff. It wasn't a problem.
Yeah,
it wasn't a problem. But that is not to say that if you go to Libya, that's a whole different dynamic. If you go to certain parts of Ethiopia now with the war between the government and Tigray, that's a whole different thing. But our experience was that our health and safety was never threatened as best as I can determine. And that has as much to do with the ACA as it does with the government trying to make sure that nothing happens to their guests. The people, well, I mean, so that was that as well.
Yeah.
I just want to say one other
ahead.
thing. I just want to say too, I want to thank Abdul Latif because he headed that delegation. And yesterday you were trying to get him to talk and it didn't come through. So I really want to thank him because I think that he and Barrington did a very, very good job on ground. And the key to also the reporters that we select, they have to be flexible, number one, and they have to follow instructions. You see, when we go into these countries, there are protocols, and and as Barrington can tell you, we gave him a whole list of protocols in terms of do's and don'ts and weather and all of that. So we always will always try to prepare the reporter to be ready and to have as much information as possible.
Yeah.
And so that is fantastic to know. We know that you and Ms. Claudette Perry, when you work together, we know that everything is possible. In fact, Ms. Perry writes that Ambassador Bennett has been phenomenal in her diplomacy over the past 15 years. It's been a joy working with her over the years. And so folks in the NMPA, this is an internal thing, but in the NMPA, reach out to Ms. Perry if you're interested in being a part of the next delegation to Africa. She and the ambassador certainly will discuss and perhaps they'll meet with you and you guys can take it from there. It's open to all NMPA journalists. So come one, come all. They welcome you and you'll have the experience that Barrington looks like he's ready to go again. Barrington, are you ready to go again?
Yes, I'm ready. This is what I do. Yeah. And I've been for quite a while. I've been saying that I want to do more international journalism, travel, jump in, spend some time, and do some. So yeah, this is what I want to do. So if they choose to use me again, I'm ready.
We certainly appreciate you, Barrington. We appreciate Her Excellency, the ambassador. We appreciate, of course, Claudette Perry, the executive administrator at the NMPA. All the hard work that went into this and that continues to go into it. We also appreciate the fact that our Midwinter Training Conference kicks off on January 19th, and we'll be at the Diplomat Beach Resort in Hollywood, Florida through the 22nd, where the theme is the publishing industry advancing the Black press of America, reaffirming, engaging, and empowering. Visit www.nmpa-events.com to register and reserve your hotel room at that beautiful resort that we will finally be getting together for the first time in about 2 years. The NMPA is adhering to all real strict COVID safety procedures and protocols. So anyone traveling will be safe at the Diplomat. When you're with the NMPA, you can guarantee that we will be doing everything we can to make sure that everybody is safe. It's not too late to get into I'm seeing a note. It's not too late to get into the Midwinter Conference. Please register for your hotel rooms. Go to that site, www.nmpa-events.com, and you can register for your hotel room. Also, our Black fact of the day is Black newspapers. And, the Crisis magazine was founded in 1910 and has remained popular even today. Founding editor of the Crisis, which stood as the NAACP's official magazine, W.E.B. Du Bois editorialized for an end to violence against Blacks. He highlighted the accomplishments of Blacks and covered higher education. Some of the major literary figures of the Harlem Renaissance were first published in the Crisis. It is the oldest Black-oriented magazine in the world. Let it be known, the Crisis magazine is Black history. It is U.S. history, and no doubt it is world history. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow.